I don't know how Dan Quinn's going to do with Dallas, but like Dan to me is not fit to be a head coach. Guys like that, they have to stay in that coordinator position, that position coach position. They're not cut out to be head coaches. And Dan he's a good example of that. Game management decisions. You know what I mean? Stuff that head coaches really do need to nail when it comes to games.
You know, it's crazy that you talk about Dan Quinn. That takes us into one of our next topics, man. We have a new regime in Atlanta. We got Terry Fontenot as our GM, Arthur Smith as our head coach. How are you feeling today as a Falcons fan?
So initially, I wasn't pumped about the hires, honestly, initially. After kind of looking at it a little bit more, I see what type of dynamic and what type of team they're really trying to build. And so my thought is this, depending on, of course, what they do with that fourth pick, bringing him in, you look at a team that he comes from, and granted, the personnel is Derrick Henry, right? Best running back in the NFL, power running, play action passing. I liked the hire of Arthur Smith after I looked at it even more. And I'll say this is why. Arthur Smith's dad is the founder of FedEx, which makes his dad a billionaire, which makes him a de facto billionaire, because if his dad's a billionaire, he's a fucking billionaire. And so the reality is this is a guy that's not doing this for a paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
He's invested in coaching. And I'm sure just like with anyone who has a dad, or a mom, a parent, a guardian that has done great things, you don't want to be known for what your parents are. You want to have your own thing. And for him, coaching is his thing. He probably loves football. He's a football guy. He's done his time. He got his chance to be the OC. Think about it, Matt LaFleur was the OC before he was the OC. And Matt LaFleur's offense wasn't that great. He had Derrick Henry too. And granted, Derrick Henry was probably in year 3 maybe. So I guess he was a little bit younger. But still, that offense was vanilla at best. They were ranked 18th. 19, 20. They were in that range of being ranked with Matt LaFleur, who's done a terrific job with the Packers. You get this guy. The Titans have had a top 5 offense the past 2 years. They're number 1 in red zone scoring and red zone efficiency. That is the biggest issue that the Falcons face. When they get in the red zone, they don't score. They don't put up touchdowns. They settle for field goals, and that's been a big issue. And so, to me, if he can bring his scheme in, and we can get the right running game, because that's going to be key in this. If he's going to run the same philosophy, which is power run, play action pass, I can see how this would work out beautifully. In reality, they got to get the right running back, though. And I know that even with that running game, you have to have a good old line. And so that's the task I think that the new regime is going to have to deal with, man. What direction do we really want to go in with this team? Is it time to move on from Matt Ryan? Is it time to have a new face of the franchise? Can we still win it all with these guys that we have and just retool around them? Because you hear that word so much, retool. And it seems like, how often does that work? How often does retooling work for teams that feel like they've missed their championship window?
So I'm kind of where you are. And I said on this podcast 2 weeks ago that Adam Gase was going to get Arthur Smith a job that he wasn't ready for. And it was because Tannehill was so bad under Gase. Gase is such a terrible coach that we're now seeing that Tannehill becoming a better quarterback in the league, and we don't even want to accept it because of what he was with Gase, was going to make people believe that Arthur Smith had a lot to do with this. And I was like, maybe it's just the stench of Gase being off of him. But then I did some homework. I listened to the press conferences. I actually looked at some numbers, and it's not a sexy hire, but it makes perfect sense for what the Falcons need. As far as we've been terrible in the trenches, and that's what he does. He's the offensive line guy. That's where he cut his teeth at. So bringing a guy who's good with the offensive line, also was able to deal with injuries to his offensive line in Tennessee and still be productive within the red zone. We could not score in the red zone. We haven't been able to score in the red zone since college.
And obviously, I guess Shanahan, obviously, if you that one outlier year, we were really good in the red zone. But hell, we had a ton of it. What you got drinking over there? Making that face.
I grabbed the wrong cup.
But, outside of that one outlier year, being the Super Bowl year, where, of course, we were just scoring from everywhere, explosive plays within the 20, within the 50, whatever. We were scoring from pretty much everywhere. Outside of that year, you haven't had a red zone presence where you had a guy that just really punched it in since Michael Turner. Patrick DeMarco being fullback, we haven't had it. And so I think that's one of the things that he definitely brings to the table. But I agree with you, obviously, it wasn't a sexy hire. Everybody's like, who the fuck is that? That's really what you're thinking to yourself. Who the fuck is that? The last time I watched the Tennessee Titans play, they scored 10 points in the playoffs at home.
Hey, Chris, I got to run to the bathroom real quick. Just carry it.
Somebody that's created this culture on offense here. Who is he? They've only scored X amount of points in a playoff game. And so I think the biggest thing with what the Falcons are doing and setting up is it is for a new regime, but I think it's to close out what we've already had. And what we've had in the past is, a team that's all about finesse. So now you're bringing in somebody that's going to bring in this lunch pail mentality. These guys that are going to be, hard nosed in the trenches. That's what we're looking for, and I think that's going to excite Falcons fans more than anything. Is just having an offense that's different from what we've seen, because we know what we have, and so I invite the smash mouth mentality. But at the same time, what direction do they want to go in? Do you want to get a quarterback with that fourth pick? And if you want to get that quarterback, well, then what are you going to do with Matt Ryan? Why are you drafting somebody fourth overall and you're not starting him immediately? There would be no reason to draft a quarterback fourth and he's going to sit a year. I don't understand that. I don't know why that would happen. You got all this money invested. Why would you draft a quarterback fourth? And so,
So, you talk about the drafting the quarterback fourth. I'm all for drafting the quarterback fourth. I like Trey Lance. Did some homework on him. He went to North Dakota State, just like your boy went. Limited competition, but
played one game this year.
Play one game, yes. And because of that, he's not ready. I don't think he's ready as far as experience goes. But that level of prospect, I don't know if we get that opportunity again. And there were some smart people preseason who had him rated above Justin Fields. And Justin Fields didn't have a great showing. I don't trust quarterbacks coming out of the school like Ohio State, because you saw what Dwayne Haskins was, good.
And he's also a 1 year. He played 1 year. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but he was great that 1 year.
He was, but it was still just 1 year. We didn't have a large enough sample size to even know how good he was. Well, Fields, you got 2 years, right? 2 full years at Ohio State. You got the limited bullshit action that Kirby was pulling at Georgia. But what you do know is that he was the number one player. Not just the number one quarterback. He was the number one player in his class. And so we know that always doesn't work out, because look at Matt Barkley. He backs up Josh Allen, right? And he was the number one guy. And remember, he made probably the biggest mistake of his life. He was going to be the number one pick that 1 year. And he came back, and then he got drafted like 5th or 6th round. And so it was just like, number one prospects aren't always guarantees. Just like any quarterback selected in the top 10, it's not a guarantee that they work out. Fortunately for the Falcons, Matt Ryan, to me, I know some people wouldn't agree with me. That has worked out very well. The Falcons, this is the winningest that franchise has ever been. He's stable. He never gets injured.
So, yeah.
He's an MVP. He's taking you to the Super Bowl. He's outside of winning the whole thing. He has done everything that you would have wanted him to do as the Falcons quarterback.
Agreed. So let's circle back to the new regime. So watching the press conferences, man, I got a few interesting things out of it. For one, I'm really happy about the Terry Fontenot hiring because he knows the division, for one. I think that matters. He's a pro personnel guy, and I trust the Saints operation over there. I think they have a great operation. And it's not that he's like some chip off the Belichick tree that didn't really get to participate in the process, that just had a job because, they got to fill the positions on the staff. Right. But I really believe that he had an integral part in building what they built over there in New Orleans. And as you see, they've been able to bring in good free agents to actually bolster up that roster. And if they would have started, the better quarterback on their team this year, they might still be playing.
Agreed.
But I listened to the stuff he talked about, and both he and Arthur, they were really big on culture, character, and accountability. And I don't know if that's a shot at what was going on in Atlanta previous to them, or if it's they are just ensuring that, hey, they're about building a culture. Because one of the reporters asked Terry a question about, did he feel any extra pressure being one of the few minority black GMs in the league? And he was like, I don't feel pressure because I worry about the process and I'm not worried about necessarily the output. And it's all about the diligence to the process. And I think that if that is the behavior that's going to take over the Falcons franchise, I think we're going to be headed the right way to building off of what, so DQ, he did a great job of building off what Mike Smith had built, and then it kind of ran its course.
I agree.
And I think that without totally tearing us down to the studs, I think they're going to build off what's here, but add that accountability and make sure that they have high character guys who fit what it is that the Falcons want to be. We're not just acquiring talent. We're acquiring talent that fit what we want. That's going to set us up for success.
And I agree. I mean, I think they know what it is when they accepted the job. And the thing is, there's no cap, right? We don't have any cap. It's going to be really tough to navigate, any player on the bubble contract. And so you look at it this way, and you came in, with the number 4 pick in the quarterback talk. And so my thing is, it really starts there. That is going to set the precedence of what this regime is. Who's that first pick? We haven't picked that high since Matt Ryan. You know what I mean? This is the highest we picked since Matt Ryan. Before then, you traded up to get Julio at 6. You got Jake Matthews at 7.
We got Vic at.
You got Vic at I think Vic at 8.
Mm-hmm.
But either way, those are all your top 10 picks since Matt Ryan's been here. And so the thought is, and think about it, the same GM was a part of all those picks. Now it's a new GM. And so that's going to set up the direction that this team wants to go in. My thought is this. Would I be upset if we took a quarterback? No. But if we're going to take a quarterback, first of all, there needs to be a plan for Matt. And that plan doesn't need to be this 1 year, he's got one last year here. No, you need to have already traded him before you make that pick. Or know that you have a trade partner that wants him and you've already agreed to whatever it is that you're going to get for him. Out of respect for him and for everything that he's done for the Falcons, that's the direction that I would go in if you're going to go quarterback. I personally believe that they need to trade down. Well, depending on what the first 3 picks are, crazy enough too, that's going to really determine a lot of it as well. Because if what's my man Sewell out of Oregon. If he's there, I'm thinking you take him. And so if he's not there, I'm trading down and I'm drafting Najee. Arthur Smith's philosophy shows that he can be successful with a power runner. And granted, Najee's not Derrick Henry.
No one's Derrick Henry.
He's a Bama, right? No one's Derrick Henry. He's a Bama back like Derrick Henry, but he's not Derrick Henry. And so I look at it this way: you get your running game established. You get a bell cow. Mm-hmm. He would come in and be the bell cow. He'd be a 3-down back, and you could have a change of pace back, because he's not going to take every carry or every snap. But
keep Ito around,
right? And I like Ito. I like Ito, but get rid of this whole Brian Hill experiment. We know Todd's not going to be back.
Yeah, no.
So you get your running back for future. You got 5 years of this, and you do. You get this guy. You bring him in. You keep Matt. You keep Julio. You have Calvin Ridley, who's coming up on a contract year where they got to get ready to pay him.
Yeah.
Reality. I run this thing one more time. And I try and build as much as I can, because the thought is this: the defense played a lot better in the second half of the year. They did. Hell, they held Kansas City to fucking 17 points at home, and they really should have held them to 10, because if AJ Terrell catches that interception in the end zone, Falcons win that game 14-10.
Yeah,
and the Chiefs would have been forced to play the very next week, and who knows how that changes the outcome of the Super Bowl. I'm sure they would have won the game that they played. Yeah. Still, who knows? Who knows what that does? It sets maybe it sets up the blueprint, and it should have done it regardless of win or loss for the Falcons. For any team, if they wanted to see it, it's just like, well, hell, Falcons ranking the bottom 5 in defense. They went in there and shut that shit down. Are they that are the Chiefs that lackadaisical? Like, you know what I mean? Is that the answer to that question, or were these boys just out there playing? Like,
do you think Dean Pease makes a difference? Because
absolutely,
yeah. Looking at his resume, what I really liked is that he's been a good defensive coach in different styles and complementing different offenses. And one thing that I think is really important is playing complementary football, but also just bringing in the bevy of knowledge that he has from being around the league for so long. And you look at what he did in Tennessee. When he left, so did their defense.
Exactly. That's exactly what happened. The defense, because it was weird. Think about it. Most people, when they thought of the time, they're like, oh, yeah, that's a team that runs the ball and that it's pretty good on defense.
Nah, bro, they're not really good on defense. And yes, they run the ball, but they have a high-powered offense.
They were one of the worst teams on defense this year themselves. Exactly. But they had a high-powered offense. And so I look at it this way too. You got, the brain, I guess, right? Because Mike Vrabel's not an offensive guy, so I can't credit him for any of that.
No.
This is the guy that's been in charge of that offense that's been top 5. And so he's coming off of working with a bad defense. We have pieces just like the Titans did. I mean, Jadeveon Clowney, he's a great runner up to his billing as a player, but we got Grady Jarrett, who we know might be the most underrated defensive player in the league. I would even say that Grady Jarrett's a top 3 defensive tackle. Obviously, with Aaron Donald's number 1 without question, and then maybe Fletcher Cox, who's even getting old at this point,
or Calais.
Oh yeah, well, man, they kind of overrated him a little too.
I'm just throwing names out there. I don't watch enough D-line play to be smart on it.
Well, the one thing I do know is that Grady Jarrett's a fucking animal. And so that's why they paid him, because he is who he says he is. And he's still young. He's like 27. So like he's not old. Like you've got this setup that's similar. And you got guys that have won. Like guys that have been a part of the past regime that we know have talent. Keanu Neal, he had a great bounce back year, considering that he's been lost for 2 years in a row. I thought he was pretty good. Now, those are the decisions that Fontenot is going to have to make, though. Do you bring him back? And then if you do, at what number? What is his value? He's
got to be low.
It can't be. It definitely isn't what it was before the injuries, because he looked like a perennial Pro Bowler before the injuries. Now he looks like just a good starter. What type of value does that carry? How much money are you willing to invest into him, considering all the money that you've got to do? Hold on 1 second, Lee.
Yeah. So while he's doing that, the one thing that scares me about this new regime was with the roster construction. Terry Fontenot was asked.
Okay, all right. I'll make sure I lock up.
Terry Fontenot was asked, "Hey, who has final say on the roster?" And he didn't have an answer for who has final say on the roster. He says it's a collaborative effort. Like, we have final say on the roster. And that leads me to believe that, Rich McKay's still running the show. And Rich has been good, but part of bringing in a new regime, I'm hoping that they are allowed to make the decisions that they want and need to make the franchise better, and they don't have to defer everything to Rich and Arthur to get their okay.
And I had muted my volume, so I didn't hear everything you said, but I caught the tail end there, and it sounds like you're talking about Rich McKay and his role in all of this.
Yes, because they asked Terry who had control over the final roster, and he said we do. He said we're going to make the best Falcons decision. He did not say he had it. I didn't see anywhere where Arthur said that he had it, so that leads me to believe that it's up to Rich and Arthur. Arthur Blanks, that is, not Arthur Smith.
And I think and we'll see how it ends up working out. Clearly, Rich McKay's a football lifer, right? Head of the competition committee. So, he's got some rank, and he certainly is well respected. He's won the Super Bowl with Tampa, right, as the GM. I don't like the idea. I don't know why he's still here. In reality, outside of everything I literally just said, there would be no other reason for him to have any decision. He had decision with Dan Quinn and Dimitroff just this past year. And so my thought is, well, that didn't work, obviously. We don't have injuries to blame this year for why there were so many shortcomings. We were bludgeoned with injuries 2 years ago. And they salvaged it, went 7-9, and everything was okay, I guess, for the most part. But, they didn't make that hard decision because Dan Quinn is somebody that everybody likes. Right, he's a hoorah guy, brotherhood. These things, the locker room, those men fight for each other. He talked a good game for sure, and it had everybody believing. Look, he took us to the promised land. He got us to the doorstep of the promised land, and we damn near went into the door, but we never fully got into that promised land. And so the thought was, well, he can run it back. We can do this. But a lot of that was hard-headedness too. Why the fuck are you running Kyle Shanahan's offense and Kyle Shanahan's not here, and you don't have his disciples either? Why do you not make Matt LaFleur the offensive coordinator as soon as he leaves? Why are you bringing in Steve Sarkisian to be the offensive coordinator? You're saying, hey, man, run his offense. Hey, Dirk, you've already been here before too. Run the Shanahan offense. It never made any sense. And the results show for it. That's why it didn't make any sense.
You know who I think Rich McKay is like? I look at him like I look at Jeffrey Lurie and Jack Easterby down in Houston. Where Lurie, he's still the GM, but he was there with Andy. Then he moved to the other side of the house when Kelly was there. And then once they got rid of Chip, they brought him back over to the football side. Then you have Jack Easterby down in Houston, who used to be a Patriots chaplain, but is now running that organization. And it's somebody who overshadows what the smart football people are doing. And I'm not saying that Rich McKay isn't qualified to be in that position, but he's obviously been a part of the ups and downs and part of the downs and part of the downs and part of the downs. And it leads me to believe that he needs to be down and out and not, up making decisions in Arthur Blank's era.
More negatives than positives.
Yes.
Since he's been here, to put it, in the simplest form, there have been more downs than ups, and the ups have been great. Everybody loved the ups. The Super Bowl year, NFC Championship year, another year where they blew the lead in a game. They were up 17, and people forget that. But this is nothing new with the Falcons blowing leads. I mean, this is history. This is, and you hate to say it, Rich is a part of that stench. And you thought that, getting rid of Quinn, getting rid of Dimitroff, you're pretty much, for the most part, getting rid of all of that. And then, of course, Matt Ryan would probably be a part of that too. Well, there is no maybe. He is a part of that because he's been the leader of the team for all this stuff. And so I understand the narrative, players play, coaches coach, and I'm sure GM's GM. But at the same time, there is something that has not been addressed. And look, I am going to come in with nothing but high hopes. I'm optimistic about what the new regime is going to be able to do. I am very curious as to what it is that Rich's role is truly going to be. And it sounds like it's the same thing it has been the last 2 years, where he has a say-so on stuff. And that goes totally against what Arthur came out and said once they clean house, that whoever the GM and coach are going to make the decisions. And it's just like, if you're selling the same shit to the Falcons, at least repackage it different is all I'm saying.